It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Thank you for joining us. We've got two guests today, as well as a song to feature. The song that's going to be featured is going to be up first, so I should introduce it first, in order of appearance. Makes sense. The song is called Little Bird So Blue. It's by Robert Marino. Robert has had several songs featured on our show, and he's also a contributor to our GoFundMe in support of our show, which we really appreciate. This is his new track called Little Bird So Blue. It's a nice tune. That'll be up first as sort of the intro to the show. And then we've got two interviews. First one up is Matt Zinman. Matt is a personal success trainer. He's also a hockey player, although he said he's beer league now, but back in his teens and in his youth, he was a professional player. He's also got a book out called Z-isms, and you can check that out at Z-isms. It's z-isms.com. Check out his book there. He'll tell you all about it during the interview. After Matt, we've got Eric Protein Moseley, and Eric is an actor. He has 10 years acting experience. He's also created a superhero called Captain Negro, for which he has a song that we're going to play at the intro to his interview. He'll tell us about Captain Negro. He's also been an advocate for the homeless with his daughter. They have been going to San Francisco and to LA, to the homeless areas, and trying to enlighten people on the COVID-19 and the seriousness of it and how it impacts the homeless people. Surprisingly, he tells us that many were not even aware of the virus at all. He's also got a book out as well, and you can check that out at Amazon.com. We will put the link to both Matt and Eric's books in the show notes, so check it out there. And if you are a musician and would like to get your track featured for a month on our show, please check out our complete radio promotional package. You will get your track aired once a week for 4 weeks. We'll archive on all of our platforms. You will also get a 15-minute interview on the show to talk about whatever you want. Your track will always be played at the very beginning of the show before commercials and interviews, and your photo, bio, and links to your music will be featured in our music artists section on our website. So please check it out, DouglasColemanShow.com, and click on the complete radio promotional package link. And now, on with the show and on with the music. Here is Little Bird So Blue by Robert Marino.
Little bird, don't you cry for it. It's high time you leave your nest to find someone you can be true to. Maybe someone blue like you. Hey there, my little bird, so blue. Don't let that moon hang over you. I bet someday soon you will arise and you'll bid those blues goodbye. Come on, I know you knew. Oh, my dear little bird, so blue. Somewhere a blue boy waits to see if there is someone who believes that a song will light the darkest night. Put the sun in his sky, dear little bird so blue. There's a blue are just waiting to see him. You might come pushing by his window and start tapping on the pane. Something to beckon him to stir your gypsy soul, to take his heart between your wings and take it to a meadow green, whispering, hey there, my little bird, so blue. Someone is waiting just for you, and it's you he can't stop thinking of. Think he's waiting long enough. Come on, I know you knew. Oh, my dear little bird, so blue. Imagine two perching on the rainbow. Wouldn't that be nice to see? Two lovebirds promising to never be alone, so busy feathering their nests with no more need to cry or need to fret. Hey there, my little bird, so blue. Someone is waiting just for you, and it's you he can't stop thinking of. Think he's waited long enough. Come on, I know you knew. My dear little bird, so blue.
Hurry, Bullwinkle! The show's about to start!
I'm coming as fast as I can.
And now,
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
again,
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Matt Zinman. Hey, Matt, how are you?
It's great to be with you, Douglas. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I'm looking at your bio here. You've done an awful lot of things. What do you call yourself? I mean, as far as a title. I am Matt, I do this. What exactly do you do?
Well, I guess I had different titles on the roles I have. So I'm a founder of a nonprofit called the Internship Institute, and we work with employers and set programs up. So I'm CEO on that front, and then author with the new book, and in general, like a personal success trainer.
A personal success trainer. Okay. Let's see. It also says you were an athlete. What did you do for an athlete?
I'm a lifelong ice hockey player.
Oh, nice.
I still play. I was on Team USA in my teens, and didn't quite go pro, but I went to Temple University and captained and went undefeated champions. So my glory, I'm in beer league now, basically, but I'm still playing, so I'm good with that.
Did you hear my interview with the people that made the film about Terry Sawchuk?
No, unfortunately I missed it. I'll have to go back.
Okay, yeah, check it out. It's called the movie was called Goalie, and it's basically and check out the film if you can, because it's a really good film. But it's about it's his life story about Terry Sawchuk, and how those guys back then did not wear masks is beyond me. I mean,
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
I know, rough sport.
Absolutely. Well, that certainly is an athletic sport. And I've never played hockey. I can't skate. So they pretty much ruled me out. I can't skate and I can't dance.
It's kind of a requirement. You have to kind of start there.
Yeah, it wouldn't do if you just wore sneakers out there. I mean, you just couldn't get going fast enough.
Fair enough. Well, we could use you as a target. That might be a good thing. You could be a pylon. We could find a position for you. How's that?
I'd be a big target. That would work out real well. All right, so let's see. You wrote a book. Your book is called Z-isms. Why don't you just explain what that is, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, it's Z-isms is our insights to live by, and it's things that everyone has in terms of pearls of wisdom and their wit and experiences, and those that they share for the purpose of positively impacting as many people as possible. So that's my goal.
Okay. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here. A personal success trainer, I'm assuming, teaches people how to improve their life somehow. If they're not fulfilling their dreams, or they're not happy, or they're not making as much money as they want to be making, something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it cuts across all facets, really, most of which being related to the book in terms of your self-discovery, your relationships, a lot in and around mindfulness, and then getting into some structure around coming up with a life enrichment plan that someone who's into personal development or is just looking for that kind of tune-up or life or career transition, those would be involved in it.
Okay, so you would kind of have to tailor this to somebody's personal life, because obviously what works for one would not necessarily work for somebody else. So you would have to do this kind of individually, yeah?
To a degree. I mean, where the book is concerned, for example, it's like having a personal conversation, and there's a number of questions throughout, and some are going to resonate with some people and others not. And so through the course of that experience, it's going to be up to the individual to personalize that for themselves and for their own growth goals. And I'm working more with audiences than I am individuals at this time, but I could very well head in that direction.
Can you give us kind of an example or a little bit of an overview of what somebody might expect if they came to one of your speaking engagements?
Sure. So some of the principles in the book, one of which is grounded in earned confidence. So with that, we're talking about how the fact we've all been through everything we've been through in our lives, whether we're younger or otherwise, and we're still standing. So it's a reminder and a way to outsmart worry and stress and anxiety and things that really kind of take you out of the present and have you off your balance and your footing. So that you're going to be able to just deal with the real and cope and get through whatever is coming your way and is happening right now, because that's what you've always done. So part of it's mindset, and it starts there. Another is certainly we talk about mood health. I certainly have some personal reveals in the book and when I speak. And I've had to contend with depression since my early teens, and it's just something that I have to be really mindful of and taking care of myself. And we get into being a life athlete as part of that, and just general self-care, right? You can't be good doing everything you need to do if you don't start there. And then we actually talk about perception itself, because we all have so many moving parts at any given time that as we take in information, we assume that it's the truth when it's really only an interpretation. So it's important to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt when we are maybe making assumptions, let's say about an interaction that we had. We think someone thinks less of us, but if we're not certain of that, then why put ourselves through anything less than assuming everything's good? And if you are in some kind of an exchange with anyone and you both think that you're right, those two rights don't necessarily mean either one of you are wrong. You may be perceiving it a different way, or it's not necessary to get into something more involved in terms of conflict.
Well, I think a lot of people have a misinterpretation between facts and opinion. And I think that's where a lot of arguments can start from. Everybody has their own opinion, but everybody should have the same set of facts. And I think sometimes that gets a little gray for some people.
I mean, it's always going to come down to the circumstance, and you have to really make a choice. So for me, especially when I was younger, I might have a tendency to let my ego get in my way and be more forceful about wanting to be right about something. But in terms of that situation, if you just ground yourself and be like, what is it worth it? Do I really want to put myself forth knowing I'm going to spiral into a certain amount of negative energy around emails or texts, or what are you going to ignite by allowing yourself to go that way, right? We're talking about emotional intelligence here, and about picking your battles. But in terms of being in that moment and being able to choose that you can, maybe yield or just say, I don't necessarily see something your way, but it's not necessary to argue about something either, and just, respectfully disagree and move on instead of, lighting a fire that's gonna burn you.
You could obviously apply this particularly to your significant other, yeah?
Right. Yeah, that's certainly, any of your relationships. So, one of the things I talk about in terms of relationships, and we get a little bit later on in the conversation, is swimming with the current. So on one hand, we're looking at a sense of mindfulness. And in my experience, in general, I would say whenever I get that feeling of like I'm banging my head against the wall, or I'm just kind of, that swimming upstream, it could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could just be a conversation. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what does it mean to turn around? And so that's the gut side of that part. And then there's the domestic side of it, of being in a relationship, and who is the current. And when you look at just life and life management, dividing and conquering, and just letting one person be the wear the pants at a time, having to do with whatever that might be, and then looking out for each other for the things that you cover and is a weakness of the other person. So I've been around the block. I'm in second marriage now. My it's her second marriage too. So we've definitely had our share of relationships, and it's just one of those things you learn to live without conflict, really.
On your bio, it says, beware of spiders. And I've heard this analogy used a little bit differently. I've heard it as donkey and racehorse. But I think it's kind of the same thing. You're talking about there's only two types of people in the world, spiders and those who get caught in the web. And the way I've heard it is the donkey and the racehorse, where the racehorse is the aggressor and they can only be friends with the donkey, because if you put two racehorses in the stall together, they'll kick the crap out of each other.
You're taking me to school a little bit on this one. I'm less familiar with that one, but it's actually not apples to apples, Douglas. The idea here is, and this comes back to relationships, and this was actually a chapter I almost didn't put in the book. It's which one of these isn't like the other, because it's more of a cautionary chapter, and we're talking about manipulators. And when we look at our own self-reflection and discovery, and we've got our own different things to try and figure out, and it's hard enough to figure other people out as it is too, with those moving parts, where can you really stop and find a data point that tells you one thing or another about somebody or yourself? And when you say that there's either spiders or those who get caught in webs, you're talking about people who make a conscious decision to impose their will on other people. So you either do that or you don't. And it's not necessarily that they're a bad person. It's that they will do that. And they might only do it in a certain circumstance, like, office politics, and it's a matter of survival. But, they're not going to manipulate a family member or a friend. It just is what it is. And then when you're somebody who's not that way, and I do believe that's the majority of us, you're more oblivious to it, right? You're not putting your mental energy into trying to, manipulate people in a conscious way. You give people the benefit of the doubt and trust and things. And it's how do you handle that situation is really the question, and just be aware of it. Family members, you can't trade them. So some of them just might be that way.
Oh, that's very true. If you take a look at people who are very wealthy, billionaires, millionaires, do they tend to be spiders?
That's a really good question. I think that that's a generality to say that they tend to be one way or the other. I mean, I've had some experience dealing with some billionaires actually in my time, and yeah, they step on necks. It's kind of like that might be their MO. And look, I mean, if that's their thing, they could have all that money and still be miserable. It just really is all relative. But generally speaking, I think that in the short term, you might be a manipulator and you might make those gains that you can look to as a reward for it. But in the long run, I don't think that pans out. Just from, you can call that karma, you can call that whatever it might be, but I think kindness gets you a lot further.
The old adage about everybody dies alone, and in the end, we all net the same. So, I mean, it's true. Somebody could have all the money in the world, but they could be miserable, like you said, yeah?
Sure. And, it's also about standing up for yourself, right? So if you're somebody who is listening and you say, well, I really need to say no more often. If that's you, then you are probably more susceptible to being a prey to somebody who's taking advantage of you. And then the worst part is you feel terrible about what you didn't say no to, and then it really takes a hit on your self-esteem. So you really do need to step up and it's not confrontational to respect yourself. And then that person will respect you more for standing up for yourself. So that's where it starts to level things out.
You mentioned energy exchanges, and I see that phrase on your bio here as well. I'm not sure if I'm exactly in the same ballpark with this concept as you're writing it, but I had maybe a year ago a guy named John Edward on the show. You don't know if you've heard of him or not. He was a psychic guy on the Discovery Channel, I think, or one of them. Back in the 90s, he had a show called Crossing Over, where he allegedly could talk to the dead. Okay. He told me about what he called smelly energy. And he said, most people have the ability when they go into a room and they meet people for the first time, and somebody in the room just gives off what he called smelly energy. He said it's not, they don't have BO, but it's just something about them that you get near them and you go, ugh, you just don't like it. For whatever reason, you can't put a finger on exactly what it is. It's not necessarily anything they said. It's not what they look like. But he says oftentimes those perceptions are correct. And he said more times than not, at least in his opinion, in his life, that he's been proven right. That there was just something about this person that they didn't like. And he said, and he called it smelly energy. So when I read through your thing, it says people that can adapt to the energy in the room or being the one to try to influence it. You would have to have the ability to sort of pick up on the energy that's in the room first, correct?
Right. I mean, I think, working backwards, I'm not familiar with this person, and I can't say I'm an advocate of channeling people who aren't still walking the planet, but I do think what you just described is accurate, and I think a lot of people can relate to. I think it's rare. It's rare for me, but yeah, you can walk in a room and you just don't understand why, but there's somebody you haven't talked to or just something that they're putting off. We put off energy, and that is really what we're talking about. But if I rewind it just a bit and I say, well, if you look at a situation where let's go back to earned confidence for just a minute, and the fact that worrying is a negative energy, and one that's unnecessary. It's something that you are setting forth an expectation of something that you don't want to happen. And so we're not born worriers, and it's a habit. And how do you break it? So on one hand, you can go to you might not catch yourself, and then you have to realize, well, what I worried about didn't happen. And then you have to rewind and be like, well, what did I do to myself unnecessarily? What did I do to other people in spreading that worry? That's what we're talking about with energy exchanges to a degree. Or you're in a great mood with your friends, and you go into a restaurant, and the server is in a bad mood, and suddenly that transfers over. We have a personal responsibility to recognize that we do all put off that energy, and part of it also is kind of having some shields up. When not again like you want to walk around like having your guard up all the time, but you do have to be really mindful of that. And in that example, do you choose to let that person get to you, or do you make a decision to say, you know what, they're having a bad day, and I'm going to make an effort to crack a joke and cheer them up. They might not know why I'm doing it, and I'll get satisfaction from lightening things up, but that's how I'm going to handle it. So, I do that with my son, when we're out at restaurants. It's just a common thing. So that energy and part of the book does certainly go up into the areas of the law of attraction and swimming with the current and coincidences and 11:11 and synchronicity, that it does get up into that area. And so in the example of, you can believe in the law of attraction or not, but ultimately it boils down for me of what you expect tends to happen, right? So the expectations matter. So if you're someone who believes in that, but you're a worrier, then you're contradicting yourself, because if you're setting a worry about something you don't want to happen, you actually could be causing that to happen. It's another energy exchange that ties into to law of attraction. So there's different applications for it. And certainly what you just described about walking in a room and recognizing someone putting off, call it smelly, call it intuition, but usually trusting your gut's the right decision.
How do we use that to our advantage?
Well, I think it's a mindfulness. It's just something that you just have to tune into. So for me, and again, this really does root back to law of attraction and just general enrichment, is gratitude. That's really back at the foundation of staying in the moment and, where life's joy really is. And the more that I trigger myself around gratitude, waking up in the morning and, put my feet on the floor, I do. I'm it's the first thought that comes to my mind. I'm not dropping and meditating or anything like that, but I do try and find things throughout my day to stay connected with that. And I do experience being in the flow more in that way. And things tend to go my way, and I find things just more enriching when I'm more in tune with that. So it's practice, just same as working out, and it's not anything that's going to happen by itself. And I think it's good for people to experiment with it.
Gratitude versus entitlement. You mentioned the word gratitude. That seems to be flowing through our society. There are people that are grateful and people that feel entitled. Does that
They're very different to me. No. Yeah. No, I think entitlement, well, let's reverse on gratitude first, right? Gratitude it's a practice. So if you look at it, we were talking before about perception, and one of the tools we look to is like taking a perception snapshot, because we do have all these moving parts. So if you can imagine breaking them down into, are my basic life needs met? Am I healthy? Is my family healthy? My relationships, right? Just break that down. My job, my income, just put that down in the left column and then take the snapshot. Is it positive or negative? Look, if your basic life needs are met and everyone's healthy, thank goodness. And take stock, right? That's root gratitude right there. Everything else is gravy. And then when you look over to the negative column, and I for myself, for anyone, I don't know who can sustain not having something over on the neg side at any given time, then you have to put it into perspective. I've made it through everything I have before. These are tough times. I'm going to make it through this too. This is temporary. I got this. I might not even have the answer, but I'm a survivor and I know that I'm going to figure it out. So that's kind of just self-confidence, self-awareness, rooting yourself in gratitude, staying present. Entitlement to me is more, it's a taker's mentality. It's an interesting word, Douglas. I honestly really haven't considered it, but it just takes me right over to the negative. Someone with a poor attitude of entitlement and not being grateful. It's almost the opposite of being grateful for things. It's assuming that what they have, they deserve.
Well, I think I'm sort of applying it in a political sense, where there are people that are grateful that we live in a great country in the United States, that we have a high standard of living. We do have our problems like everybody else. But when you compare us to other places on planet Earth, we're doing pretty well. We're doing a lot better than most people. And that perhaps warrants a certain level of gratitude. Where there are people looking at it from the other side of the coin that are saying, well, everybody should have this, everybody should have that, everybody should have this. And I look at that as being people coming from an entitlement perspective. So, right. I'm not sure that being from the entitlement perspective, I think people on that side are often disappointed versus
Right.
people that are grateful for what they have are generally rewarded. Yeah.
It is difficult to kind of go by geographic boundaries, because ultimately I do think that, if you're living in poverty and you're dealing with some really horrendous circumstances, it's hard to overcome that and feel the same kind of joy as someone in a wealthy country, right? That's a very good point. But by and large, people who are living along that poverty line versus people who are living in McMansions, the lesser wealthy person could be a lot happier, right? So it's kind of an individual decision, an individual lifestyle, an attitude, an upbringing, mentality, right? We throw a lot of words at it, but ultimately I do think it breaks down to, shaping one's experience as an individual choice.
I guess the last question before we wrap this up is, was there anything in particular that happened in your life that gave you a sort of awakening, an epiphany, if you will, that you decided to write this book?
Well, I mean, that's not a short answer.
Can you give us the abbreviated version?
I mean, we've all been through the ringer. And part of that is relative. And I mentioned my things that I've disclosed in the book around contending with depression. My mom got sick and had a terminal. My brother took his life in 2012. I mean, it's not really as much that I could sit here and be on a compared to anybody else. It's just through my own experiences, through being a single dad for a number of years, through my entrepreneurial endeavors with the nonprofit and for-profit. I just felt a personal responsibility to bring what I feel could benefit other people by putting the book together. And gratefully, the response has been very good.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. My guest is Matt Zinman. The book is called Z-isms, Z with a dash and ISMS. Where can people find it? Do you have a website you want to mention?
I do, yeah, exactly as you said, the Z- or Z-isms. Or if you're listening internationally, Douglas, I have to acknowledge the Z, right? I think in America, we're the only ones that call it the Z.
Yeah.
Same letter. And then, certainly on Amazon at present. Look, I mean, there's the reviews, there's samples that you can just go and read for free, and then you'll know if it's something you want to keep reading. And my goal is, this isn't a business card for me. This is, I want to get this in people's hands because I know it will help.
Great. Z-isms. That just sounds wrong.
Absolutely, I know, right?
Sounds wrong.
I had to put the phonetic right there on the cover, quite honestly, I did.
Matt, thanks so much for coming on. This was very enjoyable talking with you. Best of luck with the book. Hope it does very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Douglas. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, Douglas. I really appreciate it.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go.
Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions. And you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Look, there go Captain Negro. For real? I'm telling you, there he go. Wow. For real? Okay, Okay. There he go. It's Captain Negro. Check it out. Okay, I'm trying to make it to the top. I'm doing pretty good and I can't stop. I got a blockbuster movie that I'm trying to drop, but in the meantime I'm still chopping down crops. Captain Negro, yeah, that's my meal ticket. Gotta stick with it, cause I'm sick with it. I can't quit. Right now, my life I'm feeling superhero. Oh yeah, Captain Negro. Coming through L.A., Captain Negro. Coming through L.A., Captain Negro. Coming through the Bay, Captain Negro. Long Beach, Compton, Watts, Captain Negro. I got some chicks in the living room getting it on. They ain't leaving till 6 in the morning. They up there writing on the script, ma. That's what they should be doing. I hope they don't flip the script. You seen my crib, you seen my girl, you seen my car. You seen my 12-door car garage. You got a chance to see all of my life scars. And now I'm in L.A. hanging out with the movie stars. Captain Negro, Captain Negro, coming to L.A. Yeah, it's Captain Negro, Captain Negro, the superhero from South Central. He coming to L.A. Yeah, he's already here. He's just waiting on y'all. So what y'all gonna do about it? It's Captain Negro. Every time you turn around, you're gonna be hearing about this brother. Oh, I think somebody just got shot up there on 89th and Fig. Call him, man. You better call him out here, man. Here he come. It's Captain Negro. Yeah, your boy Eric Protein Moseley. How you like me now?
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Eric Protein Moseley. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing great. How you doing today?
Doing just fine. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
How you doing with the virus? Okay. Are you in California?
Actually, I am. I'm in Los Angeles, and I travel back and forth from Los Angeles to San Francisco. So I am like on the West Coast, but I do reside in Los Angeles.
So how are you doing with the virus? I know you guys are kind of under some sort of lockdown. California is a little more strict than other states, yeah?
Yeah, California is one of the most strictest states on it. So, I consider myself to be a frontline worker because I am an advocate for the homeless, and I go out and I educate them about the coronavirus. So my life is not as normal as a normal person. So, I'm kind of like in and out. So I don't know how other people are living, but I do get out because I have a mission that I have to do. And so, yeah, that's where my life is right now.
All right, tell us a little bit about I guess you sent to John this morning a couple of clips from some news articles about you and your daughter are out advocating in San Francisco for the homeless. Tell us a little about that. When was that?
That was, a month ago. It was a month ago that I seen a vision from God to educate the homeless about the coronavirus because I was watching television and I was seeing all these other groups of people who were taking shelter in place, and no one was talking about the homeless. And so I decided to go up to San Francisco. My daughter joined partnership with me, and we went out and we educated the homeless about the coronavirus. And I come to find out that only half of the people that we came in contact with knew about the coronavirus, which was, that was scary alone. And so like that same night, and I'm not going to say that what we did had something to do with it, but that same night the governor, Gavin Newsom, distributed $150 million to the homeless. And I took that footage from what you've seen on the news, and that's a documentary called The Homeless Coronavirus Outreach, which is going to be airing in San Francisco and in other places as well.
Are they trying to get the people off the street? I mean, is there any place that people can go to be safer from the virus?
Well, actually, I did read an article like a couple of days ago where San Francisco has opened up a lot of hotel rooms, but what they're finding problems with is to be able to combat the problem is to identify each person's need, because what a lot of people don't understand is there's three different classes of homelessness. There's upper, middle, and lower class of homeless. So people just think that there's one class of homelessness, and they try to deal with everyone on the same level. But to answer your question, yes, they are trying to get hotels, and to my understanding, they have opened 2,500 rooms, but they're having problems of having these people staying in there, and they're having problems really just dealing with them on an everyday basis because they don't have the tools and they don't have the education to deal with people that live on the street.
Why do you think there's so many homeless people in San Francisco? It seems to be particularly bad there.
At California, period, is just, I think that the resources that are here in California, a lot of people adapt to that. And then the sun and the weather, you have a lot of people that travel from different states to try to find the pursuit of happiness. And they hear about, San Francisco being the innovative capital of the world and the weather there, and that you can get, help with assistance if you're homeless. So a lot of people flock there. And they believe that somehow that they can, make that great American dream in a place that has the highest rent and really the most expensive place to live here in America.
Yeah, I know. The rents are incredible in San Francisco. And I've been there a few times, and even the price of the hotel rooms are pretty outrageous just to get a basic hotel there. It's much higher than most of the rest of the country.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because, and you know what the problem is? One of the main problems is that the tech companies have come into San Francisco and have taken over the real estate market by renting all of these apartments. And so now the people who own apartments, they have come to an agreement that, hey, they're just going to take the rent up to whatever price that they want to. And speaking of the documentary, The Homeless Coronavirus Outreach, what my daughter and I were doing, we were also illustrating of what a homeless outreach public safety worker would be like if a tech company were to hire a upper class homeless individual. Now, I have created a nonprofit organization by the name of Each One Teach One Infrastructure, and it's the partnership with organizations to provide a upper class homeless individual with a job with a tech company, which will influence the middle and the lower class individual to want to be able to follow in his or her footsteps. So what they would do, what my nonprofit organization is doing, is asking the tech company to hire a upper class homeless individual, to have him or her be an outreach worker, a homeless outreach worker, and a public safety worker, which is called a HOPS, where they would never have to come into the office. And then that would be a way for the tech company to be able to give back to the homeless for really creating, the pandemic of homelessness in San Francisco, because they have created it where they have made it where the homelessness is taking on more and more by them coming into that area.
Well, yes, I've heard that. And I think when people set up jobs in areas where they're paying incredible amounts of money for salaries, then the landlords are just going to charge what they can get. Does San Francisco have any sort of rent control?
It does have some sort of rent control, but what is happening is that the developers, they're trying to, take over like the Tenderloin areas, the areas where, the homeless and the poor live. So it's like a battle between the homeless advocates and, people who are trying to come in. So it is, to answer your question, it is now, but it's shrinking daily. They have what we call SRO, single room occupancy, and even with those, it's like the owners of the hotels are trying to make it where that they can start trying to charge, enormous prices. But what's going to happen is it's going to take a while for the economy to get back into place. So what are they going to do with these $4,000 apartments that are really worth $750 a month? Who are they going to move in? These apartment buildings that have just got built, that, they were expecting, hey, look, we're going to rent these for $4,000, and now the economy is going down and things are happening with the coronavirus. What are they going to do with all of these empty, brand new apartment buildings?
Well, it's a good question. Hard to say what they would do with them. They could probably just leave them there and let them rot and write it off, like they've done in many cities.
Yeah, but I have a solution for that as well, too. How about if they took one of those buildings, if they find out that no one is going to be able to afford that price, how about taking a floor and connecting with HUD and taking a floor and turning it into a HUD project where you would take not just anyone that's off the street, that you would take single parent females that are into a shelter, that are trying to work and trying to make their way back into the mainstream society, and rent them those $4,000 apartments up under HUD guidelines.
Well, it does sounds like a good idea. Probably easier said than done with with all of the government bureaucracy that you'd have to go through to do something like that. But it is a good idea. Let me ask you a little bit about your film work. On your bio, it says that you're an actor and a writer. You did, on here it says Actors 2020 Podcast 2019 and Jagger Gravning. Is that how you say that? Jagger Gravning Syndrome?
Yeah, Jagger Gravning, yeah.
What is that?
I worked with that. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, what is that? What is that syndrome? I've never heard of it.
Oh, Jagger Gravning's the greatest documentary ever. That was like actually it was a movie of portraying a documentary, and what it was trying to portray was as if it was real characters that had odd stories. And so when you watch the film, it would leave you in suspense of thinking like, well, wow, are these real people or are they actual characters? And so the character that I had, and it's kind of creepy because the character that I had was an individual who was supposed to have been in a woman's bathroom while the cheerleaders were outside, and he had to go use the bathroom, but then they came in the bathroom, and then he was like caught in the bathroom, but he wasn't really trying to be in the bathroom. So I had to improv that all the way to like some creepy stuff after these girls came in the bathroom and things of that nature. So while we were at the film festival, the people at the end, they were like looking at me while I was up on the stage with the producer, Jagger Gravning, like turning their nose up at me and stuff. And Jagger had to say, hold up, wait, this guy is not really this creepy guy. He was just playing that role. And they were like, oh my God. So it was like I had played that role so good that people were really thinking I was this creepy guy in the bathroom. And we won a #1 at the film festival. Yeah, he did. Jagger Black.
Okay. Is the syndrome that's not like a Down syndrome or something? I'm thinking it's some kind of an illness.
Oh, I never really caught on to that like that, and it might mean that. I don't know. Jagger Black brings documentaries because everyone in the film did have some type of real creepy backstory, you know?
Oh, okay. All right. I just a little confused. When I see syndrome, I think it means some kind of a disease or some kind of an illness of some sort. I didn't get it that way.
And you might be right, because like to come to think of it, like I said, everyone in there did have something that was abnormal that you wouldn't really want that type of person in your circle to be honest with you. So it might have, that syndrome might, that might be the great definition for that of what you're saying.
Okay. All right.
But hey, I just learned something.
And the last thing I wanted to ask you about before we wrap this up is it says you have created a superhero called Captain Negro. I got a kick out of that. Tell me about Captain Negro.
Well, Captain Negro is the very first superhero from the streets of South Central, which makes him the very first superhero from Los Angeles. Now, he is a superhero whose mission and goal is to educate and to bridge the gap in diversity all throughout the world. Now, his name was Calvin Hurd. Now, to make this short, Calvin Hurd was a pimp that lived in South Central, and he got shot by a rival gang member. He got into a coma and was placed into a convalescent home. His nephew, who was 20 years old at the time, his nephew was in school and got a chemical called Negro Up a Notch, took it and shot it into Calvin, and Calvin became this superhero called Captain Negro, and he combated racism and discrimination throughout the whole world. But yeah, Captain Negro, I have done photo ops for him. He has his own song. He has a book that's on Amazon, and he is really making his way into the mainstream of society as far as becoming recognized.
Does he have any superhero powers?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because he's also the only superhero that has unimaginable superpowers. He's the only superhero that has unimaginable superpowers. Now, by him being from the hood, anything that you throw at him, he's able to comprehend that and to come up with a defense mechanism or an offensive mechanism that he doesn't even know himself.
That's great. We do have to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. This was funny, a lot of fun. Do you have a website you want to plug so people can come and check you out and check out what you're doing?
The best thing they could do is go to Eric Protein Moseley From the Ground Up. That is where my book is located. The book, Eric Protein Moseley From the Ground Up, is to educate about the powers of the Almighty through one man's journey of trials and tribulation. You can Google Eric Protein Moseley From the Ground Up.
Okay.
Amazon.
Eric Protein Moseley From the Ground Up. All right. Very good. All right, Eric. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Best of luck with everything you're doing, and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me